Hi there and welcome to another edition of Witchfinder's Gaming Vault, and it's time to review yet another Commodore 64 game, and that game is Super Trucks. So let's take a look at the fact file for this game. Super Trucks was released in 1989 in European territories. It was originally published by Elite Systems at full price, but the version I'm going to be looking at is their re-release version in the Encore packaging. The developer for this one, I've got no idea, couldn't find any information about the developer anywhere on the internet. The price I paid for the game was £1, it was part of a bundle, and the current going rate, well, the budget version has sold recently for £3 to £5. If you want the full price version of the game, there's a copy on eBay at the moment going for £20. That's from an Italian seller, and I've got to say I think they're being pretty optimistic there. But I don't know, it's the only copy on there, so maybe it really is worth that amount of money. So Super Trucks is the name. Are these trucks going to be super or not? Let's take a look and find out. So as I just said, this is the Encore re-release version of the game. As you can see, it costs £2.99. Let's take a look at the packaging. You've got the Encore logo, you've got a big picture of some trucks racing and the logo Super Trucks, and it says racing with a difference. Well, yeah, it's trucks. So anyway, there's the spine, just says Super Trucks in a very plain font on the spine, and on the back cover we've got screenshots of the Commodore 64, Spectrum and Amstrad versions of the game, and it says game features, fast driving action, can you handle 30 tons of truck? We'll find out soon. Choice of routes varying in difficulty, which should you choose? Don't know. And finally, travel to 9 different cities in an attempt to win the coveted Super Trucks trophy. So although on the front cover it looks like truck racing on a circuit kind of thing, obviously this is going to be more like a cross-country road race across multiple cities and countries by the looks of it. At least that's what it says on the back. So a quick look at the tape for this one, and isn't this fancy? A gold tape with Super Trucks printed on it, along with the Encore logo and the Commodore 64. That's also printed on the other side there. I mean, usually I look at these tapes and it's just a black tape with a label stuck on it. You've got to say that's pretty impressive. It is just a tape, but it's impressive nonetheless. So let's have a look inside the inlay and check out the size of this font. It's absolutely tiny. I don't know how far I'm going to have to zoom in to actually focus on this. There we go, that's about as good as it's going to get. So yeah, I can't really even be bothered to read that. I'm just going to say races have covered Europe by push bike, car, plane, even hot air balloon, but now it's the turn of the truck. Oh, it's so hard to read this, it's absolutely tiny. Basically, it's a truck race across Europe. Let's just summarise it as that. We've then got some loading instructions for the different systems and also the playing instructions. Joystick works on all formats, so it's forward to accelerate, back to decelerate, right and left to turn right and left, and that's about it by the looks of it. So yeah, I can't really be bothered to read any more of that because it's really, really small. Okay. Here it says cassette versions. To help you keep track of your place on the tape, write your tape counter positions here. So that suggests it's going to be multi-load. We'll have to see if that's the case when it loads up. But yeah, to be honest, the instructions weren't that complicated. I feel like they could have done them in a slightly bigger font so you could actually read them. The rest of the instructions, by the way, is just the same instructions in other languages. French, German and Italian, I suspect, or maybe Spanish, but I can't be bothered to even zoom in and read them. So there you go, that was the packaging. Let's load the game up and see what it's like. So the game's loading up, and as you can see, here's a loading screen. It's a bit Spectrum-y looking, very single colour in certain parts, and also it's got a big black border around most of the image within the borders of the Commodore 64 where the loading bars are, which just makes me think it was done at a completely different resolution and has just been kind of transplanted to the C64. So I mean, it's not too bad. It says Elite Super Trucks and there's some trucks on it, but it could be better, I think. Here's the title screen for the game then. As you can see, it's got some wavy checkered flags down the side. It says Elite Super Trucks at the bottom and a couple of game options there for quitting and pausing the game. F1 and F3 are very close to each other, so if you hit the wrong one, you quit the game instead of pausing it. It also says press fire to go. And then we've got a graphic which I would say again originated on the Spectrum. It's got that Spectrum-y sort of look, and the colours are all kind of washed out, whereas I suspect they were much more vibrant on the original Spectrum artwork, if that was what was on the title screen of the Spectrum version. And basically it's a map of the route that you can take within the game. You can see the start at the top left there and the finish at the bottom right, and some depictions of various cities that you can travel through in the game with famous landmarks. You can see the Eiffel Tower on the left there, the Colosseum from Rome, bottom left, I think that's supposed to be. There's some mountains, various towers and other buildings. Leaning Tower of Pisa maybe is that, sort of near the finish line. And yeah, it's all a bit of a jumbled mess, to be honest. So I think there's not much else to say. Oh, there is. There's some music as well, which is reasonably jolly without being particularly outstanding. So on that note, literally the note of the music that's just played, let's press fire and start the game. So here we are at the starting line, and you can see the lights changing. Eventually they'll all go to green and we'll go, but yeah, no noise there. Usually you'd get like a beep 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 kind of thing, but no, you don't get that in this game. You do get some engine noise for the truck, which sounds more like a 50cc motorbike. Other than that, there's not much in the way of sound effects. I've hit a cone. So the idea is you've got to drive along the route and from one city to another. So at the moment I'm set around London. It says that somewhere at the top right, which is hard to focus on because you're nearly always going around a bend or avoiding some kind of obstacle. So you're racing against the trucks, I suppose, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, occasionally you get cones on the screen. There's roadworks, and there's an icon top left that depicts any hazards that are coming up, including when you have to go up a hill. That's quite a nice effect that you can tell when you're going uphill. I'm crashing a lot, almost certainly not going to reach the next stage. So yeah, graphically pretty nice. I mean, pretty good sort of representation of speed. You're not going that fast because after all you are a truck. But yeah, the graphics for your main truck are pretty cool. I like the way it kind of tilts a little bit as you're turning, sort of bending left and right. Bending? You're not bending, you're turning left and right, steering left and right. And the trees and things move quite reasonably quickly. Oh, I've reached the junction. So you get a split like in Outrun. I did actually make it. I'm a little bit surprised by that. Oh, I've crashed. Yeah, when you crash you can see the truck sort of tilt forward. You can also see some little smoke kind of things coming from the wheels when you're on the, screeching around the corners. Oh, another split already. Yeah, so I mean, oh, what is this? There's like massive signs in the middle of the road. And it's one thing to have cones that you might hit and they slow you down a bit. If you hit these barriers, you're basically just going to crash, aren't you? And that's exactly what I've done. Yeah, I'm going uphill as a 20% gradient as well, going around a bend and having to avoid all these obstacles. It's pretty tricky. It's not your average racing game, as it said on the front cover. Ooh, there's a skid. That was very much like the car skidding in Outrun. And yeah, as I mentioned with the split in the road, it does remind me a little bit of Outrun with trucks. But yeah, it's not that bad actually for a driving game on the C64. The roadside graphics could be a bit better. It's just plain colours. There's some stuff on the horizon. I'm in the Paris section at the moment, so you can see the Eiffel Tower on the horizon. But yeah, it's not amazing, but it's pretty well programmed, I would say. It moves pretty quickly. Oh, I wasn't paying any attention there. I'm running out of time now. We've got 6 seconds left. I don't think I'm going to make it to the next stage, but I think I'll have another go. Oh, I'm coming up to the split again though. I might make it. No, I've just run out of time. Oh, that didn't give me much chance to see even a game over screen. So you get a high score table as well. Yeah, as I was saying, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Outrun, but actually they've managed to put the road splits in, which they didn't manage to do on the Commodore 64 version of Outrun, so that's quite impressive. And graphically it's not too bad either. It's not brilliant, but as a racing game on a Commodore 64, there weren't that many good racing games. It moves pretty quickly. I'm supposed to be in London to start with. What is that on the horizon? I suppose that's supposed to be Big Ben and Houses of Parliament or Windsor Castle or Tower of London or something like that. I don't really know. But yeah, it's a nice pink truck, isn't it? So yeah, you've got to negotiate around the trucks, which I've managed to do reasonably well that time without crashing into anything. There's a few roadside things from time to time. I would say, oh, what am I doing all the way over there? I hit a cone again. I would say, sounds a bit naff. Could have done with if it had music in game instead of just the driving noise. It might have been better, or at least the option of music, or better engine noises basically than the one it's got. But you know, overall, it's reasonably good. I think it's not amazing. It's not the best driving game on the system, because that'd be Buggy Boy or Power Drift or something like that. But it's the controls reasonably good. It's pretty simple. I would prefer it if you could use fire to accelerate and left and right to steer instead of pushing forward. I haven't done much in the way of braking, which is typical for most driving games. You just don't bother most of the time, do you? So yeah, the split's coming up, so let's go to Brussels this time. One thing you might recall is, oh, that's quite nice, kind of sunsetty kind of thing. Oh, I've hit a giant lollipop. It said in the instructions, it suggested there was multi-load, but there definitely isn't on the C64 version, because there's no tape left on the spool in the cassette. I checked before I started, and obviously you're moving from one section to the next without having to load in as well. I don't know what that is in Brussels, but there you go, it looks like a big Ferris wheel. Oh, crashed again. So yeah, I'm not very good at the game, probably because I'm talking about it instead of focusing on it really, but all the splits coming up again. So where are we going to go this time? Oh, into some ridiculous barriers again, it seems. I mean, how am I supposed to get past that? I'm just trying to get back on the road. I mean, they're just stupid. I mean, that doesn't really make it any fun, does it? We don't want massive barriers in the middle of the road for no reason. The cones are fine. That's a bit silly and a bit of a shame, I would say. But aside from those, yeah, it's all right. It's not amazing, but it's playable. It's better than Outrun, and yeah, it's very similar to Outrun. You feel like, there you go, time's up again. Let's give it one more go and try and take a different route, because that one was just ridiculous. It's a shame there's nothing to tell you when to start, because if you didn't pay attention you could lose a couple of seconds of time there. So I'll trundle on in my truck and see if I can get a little bit further, or at least get to the second split again. Bit of braking on the corners probably makes sense as well. So yeah, I was just saying, if the programmers of this, whoever it was, because it's unknown, I haven't been able to find out who programmed it, but if they'd have programmed the Outrun conversion for US Gold, I think it would have been a much better game, because this is effectively just Outrun with a truck. You know, you've got the road splits, you've got the kind of drifting and all that kind of thing. You've got, you know, even when the truck hits something, you kind of feel it feels a bit outrunny as well. You know, it's got the animations rather than just stopping dead. So yeah, I mean, overall pretty good job, I would say. Except I keep hitting cones. That does add a different dimension to the game, it has to be said. Is it a good dimension? Probably not really. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to make the split again this time either. I'm running out of time. I'm not going to make it. It's going to be close, but I'm not going to make it. Or am I? No, I'm not. Right on the split. Okay, one more try. Let's just see how I get on. I think you've seen the first stage enough times, so I'll just start the video again when I'm reaching the split area. So I've just gone through the split and I'm trying to get to Brussels again. I'm going to go left if I can reach the second split. And yeah, I mean, there's a few nice touches in this game, like the warnings that come up for the different obstacles that you're coming up to are quite nice. The undulation in the road, again, that's something that was in the original Outrun. The road undulated a little bit, so they really have tried to recreate an Outrun style game, and then oddly just put trucks in it for some reason, which is a little bit on the peculiar side, but there you go. I mean, the road split's not brilliant, but oh, instead of all those obstacles I had before, I've now got oil slicks. Bit over the top with the oil slicks, it has to be said. I mean, there's no way I'm getting to the next stage again here. I can't even get around this bend. Oil slicks on a bend, just no. It's a bit of a shame actually. They could have just left it as a normal racing game, it would have been fine. But no, they decided to put silly things in like barriers in the middle of the road and oil slicks and things like that. The odd oil slick,
I think fine, but like they're everywhere, and yeah, I'm nearly out of time, so I'm not getting any further again in this one. That was just ridiculous. It was even worse than hitting the barriers. So on that point, on that note even, I think we'll call it a day overall. Yeah, perhaps my opinion's changed a little bit. It's pretty good. It's reasonably well programmed. You know, graphics are pretty nice as well. And there's a few nice touches, but then they've kind of ruined it with all those obstacles in the road, and the odd obstacle here and there, absolutely fine. But like endless barriers that stop you dead, or oil slicks to send you spinning off the road, is a little bit much. So that's a little bit of a shame. I think when this was reviewed in the magazines, it got sort of 60-ish%. That's probably about right. Maybe a little bit stingy actually. I'd probably give it another 10% or so. But at a budget price for $2.99, I think you get some reasonable value out of that. Full price game, possibly not. It would have been perhaps a little bit frustrating as a $9.99 game. But overall, not too bad, and one I'll definitely be keeping for my collection, especially as it only cost me £1.
That's another review completed then, and that means it's time to draw another game at random out of the tin. Not too many left now. I think there's 6 or 7 left, so let's see what we pull out for next time. And next time around, I will be playing a Neo Geo game, Blues Journey. So join me for that one next time around. Thanks very much for watching this video, and see you next time.